Namaskar, this is Professor Aman Agarwal from Indian Institute of Finance, and I'm very happy to bring the IIF Alumni Speak, which we had initiated long back. And we used to hold these sessions from the very beginning in the campus, firstly in Delhi and then in Noida and Greater Noida, at the campus of our alumni coming and talking about how their journey has been from the very beginning to where they came when they came to the institution, how it was in the institution, and then going forward and giving the reflection. So we have reinitiated this in a virtual mode. I'm happy to share that we have held almost over 300 events virtually, both in terms of conferences, webinars, international forums, where we have hosted roughly over 60 plus professors, 60 plus countries, professors, researchers, scholars, and participants from all over the world in a 3 to 4 day conference. And then we've held, 1 day, half day workshops, webinars, and so on and so forth in the last 2 years since the beginning of COVID, after the lockdown was announced in March. So we started the series in April onwards, and we are happy that there have been large number of people who have benefited from these series. We had been thinking of engaging our alumni, and I'm happy to share that we have engaged some of our alumni in the board level decision-making process. We are inculcating them in the academic councils, in the advisory councils, in the governing body of the Indian Institute of Finance, and also of other bodies, including conferences and seminars and other research bodies which we have, and committees and councils we have at the Indian Institute of Finance. So we are happy that we have a rich base of alumni who spread across the globe in different spheres, different functionalities, and doing and working across the globe. Today, it's a pleasure to welcome a young friend of ours who's no longer young. You can see from him, he's a young man now, as against a young boy as I had known him in the institution, Jinendra Shah. Jinendra is currently working as Director, Senior Country Compliance Manager at the Bank of America, based out of Mumbai, Maharashtra, in India. And then he's from the alumni batch of 2003-05. And then from before coming to the institution, he was with Maharaja Surajaya University of Baroda. He did his Bachelor's of Commerce, and then he did a program, the Management of Business Finance, following which he joined HSBC as a commodities trader, where he served from April 2005 to January 2008. From January 2008 to July 2008, he was an institutional sales trader. Then from July 2008 to July 2010, he was manager compliance with the HSBC. There he had a career of about 5 years, 3 months. Following which he moved to Bank of America, where he has been heading as the Director, Senior Country Compliance Operations Risk Management for Bank of America from June 2010 till now. And it's been 11 years and 8 months journey, a very stable journey, I would say. Not many alumni, but I'm happy to see a couple of alumni because we tried to look upon some and try and find out where they are to invite them for the series. And it was nice to see that there are many alumni who have had a consistent career in terms of stability and not like a rolling stone moving from one organization to the other. So this is something which I feel happy and proud of, the fact that they are contributing, but they are consistent and growing slowly and steadily. Now, Jinendra, this is a brief introduction. As I said, it's a very brief. We've taken that from your LinkedIn profile, which is generally considered to be fairly a professional profile. And so we thought we'd bring that up. And then we would like you now for the next half an hour to talk on different issues. To begin with, I would really appreciate if you can, highlight briefly your current role in the bank, briefly outlining that, and then begin with your journey, a professional journey coming from the institute, and then your career growth, which you've seen before we go to other issues, as I discussed before. Then the floor is yours.
Oh, wonderful, Aman. Coming back to IIF and speaking with you and everybody is a matter of privilege. In fact, to be part of IIF family, and cannot forget the day when the result was announced that I have been selected for the IIF after the due process of GD and everything. So that has been, one life event along with others. But of course, one of those is really cornerstone where I am today. So yes, to start with what I do at Bank of America. Bank of America, I am part of compliance and operational risk team. So compliance function has evolved over a period of time, and particularly it has come into the prominence after 2008 global financial crisis, because the way the banks, particularly the large too big to fail firms and too big to fail banks, ought to perform, not only in terms of just the financial numbers, but also in terms of complying with the laws, rules, and regulations, and making sure that it grows in a sustainable manner, and more importantly, responsibly. Now, how do you ensure that this responsibility is dovetailed into everybody's life, in terms of every investment banker, every treasury manager, every sales trader, and more importantly, right from the top, the tone is set correctly. So we do a little bit, and give our 2 cents in this journey, by making sure that not only we provide guidance on the laws, rules, and regulations, but also in terms of policy making, also in terms of keeping the conscience of the bank right as a second line of defense. So this is something that once somebody starts a career in the bank or in the investment bank, they will learn that there are 3 lines of defenses: first line, second, and third line. So compliance works like somewhere in the middle, which is second line of defense. And the regulators increasingly want compliance officer to be at the board, to have a seat in the board, even whether it is global board or the local boards, or the senior committees, which are decision making body, and make sure that their voice is heard, and make sure that there are important issues brought to the table right at the top. So that role has evolved over a period of time, and fortunately, I happen to be right side of, probably when this evolution happened, the right side of the journey, and I could see this role evolve over a period of time. 2008, up until then, if you can see my LinkedIn profile, I was into trading profile. I started as a commodities trader, and then institutional equity sales. 2008 came, and there was a lot of churning happening in the industry, and I wasn't an exception. But fortunately, I'd done reasonably okay with the bank at that time, HSBC. So the team was nice to tell me that, look, the downsizing is happening, but if you want, we have some internal roles. So if you want to park yourself for some time, there is this role. And believe me, sir, they wanted somebody who is as naughty as anybody can get. Somebody who has virtually taken advantage of all policy violations. Somebody who knows the loopholes. I'm just putting it in a lighter way. But somebody who is not very straightforward, who can slightly think, in a twisted manner, and help compliance team to really find those things. Because at that time, ILNFS Investment was recently acquired by HSBC. And because I was legacy ILFS employee, and happened to understand the markets reasonably okay, I got opportunity in the compliance function. Now, at that time, I wasn't really sure that I would really carry on this long and in this function, and I will continue. For me at that time, only one thing was there in my mind, that I need to continue to pay my EMIs. And so let me take whatever is coming my way. Because, and this EMI has an anecdote, and I'll tell you when I talk about my personal journey. And this has something to do with IIF, and I'll tell you how. So I thought, okay, let's continue. And then I joined compliance function. And guess what? I found intellectually more interesting this field, wherein it isn't just looking at the numbers and just trying to chase the breaking news, or just relaying the same news to my clients, and just just I found it, meaning I found that this is not a mundane exercise. And by then I started writing research reports for the, not the research report, but the sales trading notes for the institutional clients. And I thought, if this can excite me, maybe this is an area that I can explore. Fortunately, I got a manager who is still a manager till date, who promised me that if you promise me to stay around at least few years with me, even after the market improves and job opportunities are available, then I promise you to teach few things and help you learn things without you needing to do any law degree or any other thing. Your qualification is more than enough. Because at that time, sir, I must tell you, I thought I might have to probably pursue something in the field of law, or company secretarial stuff. But he told me one thing from his own experience, that whatever you needed in terms of your launch pad, you have a degree, fine, you have knowledge, that's fine. From now on, what's going to matter is your own core experience, and that's how you are going to be identified, not how many degrees that you will put in your back pocket. So just promise me that. And I said, okay, fine, that's a deal I'll take on the table. And since then, I've never let him down. He moved to Merrill Lynch at that time. Merrill Lynch was just acquired by Bank of America then. And Bank of America at that time had also appointed a new CEO for the bank, Kaku Nakhate, who continues to lead us in the country. She is a country president and CEO. And of course, it was a good franchise to join. And I joined as a compliance officer. Journey started, and then I went on to become a compliance officer for the Merrill Lynch unit. And along the way, a lot of opportunities came professionally. Got to work very closely with Securities and Exchange Board of India. Because, as you said, yeah, you stick around, you probably are going to get more opportunities, and also started knowing senior management. And as a compliance professional, very interestingly, you get to directly access senior management very quickly. Probably when I joined, people would take 5 to 10 years to get onto that table, but on probably 6 months down the line, I was having direct access to the CEO, COO, CFOs, chief of audit, and I was expected to. And while that sounds rosy, but at the same time, I was expected to really speak in that language. Have my communication very succinct, make sure that the attention span that the person has, like let's say 40 seconds, I cache the key aspect and just bring it across to her. And even my senior management started attending the board meetings at a very early days of my compliance career. So I really felt that, yeah, this is a nice field for me to play. And and I think that's when I realized that, okay, if I really focus, just do nothing and just keep my head down, just the hard work. JD sir used to say a lot, back in the learning days, there is no alternative to hard work. And I think that's true. So yeah, opportunities came when I became part of some of the SEBI committees. Recently, there was a market conduct committee. Market conduct committee, yes. The report was published and I was helping, and I got an opportunity to help SEBI understand some of the electronic trading related nuances that exist in electronic trading world, algo trading that is popularly known, but so the regulatory framework around it and some of the nuances, also because my previous avatar and also the compliance, so that amalgamation was really helpful, and also help and work with SEBI very closely on enhancing insider trading regulation and the unfair trade practices regulation. So really got an ringside view, sitting across chief of the mutual fund industry, the giants and stalwarts of HDFCs and the SEBI chairman, whole time directors, and on that table, when I got an opportunity to represent our views along with our CEO and our senior management. So that was an opportunity to look at a lot of things, not just from the perspective of what the industry wants, but also what the government wants. And really a moment of truth when the regulator tells you that, okay, come in my seat and just sit here and you decide, I'm fine, I give you that opportunity. So here is the objective, here is a practical side of it, and here is your demand. How do you, probably do an amalgamation of all three? So a lot of learnings there. So the professional journey has been a tremendously full of learning. And last few years back, my compliance management and the senior management decided that I can also be part of the bank franchise, Bank of America India. So I'm also now, so now I'm part of the bank and helping our country head of compliance, who is a managing director, lead that role for India as well as for Southeast Asia now. And this is very interesting for Republic Day. One thing that increasingly now, some of the roles that I could have only dreamt doing and learning only if I was probably in Hong Kong or in Singapore, today we can do it from India. And for us, it's a big opportunity. It's a big achievement that we get to learn, understand the markets in Malaysia, in Indonesia, Philippines, Taiwan, Thailand, I'm sorry, and new markets that we're venturing into. So because of that coverage that my senior, and my head is covering, get to learn a little bit there as well. So that's the journey, the professional journey. Very enriching, very fulfilling, and yeah, we'll see what comes next.
I think true. I think it is something which is very interesting as we grow up, during different organizations. I remember when I was at the World Bank, in the first month itself, I was given some task where I had to meet the heads of all international agencies.
Oh,
now, I was not expecting to do so, but then it was a little challenge because, all of them, I didn't know how to go about approaching them. That was the biggest thing. Now, should I just write an email, or should I call their office, or should I call them directly? And working in the US was the first time in the World Bank in Washington DC at that time. So it was very complicated for me. But then I did go through, and I did land up in a little bit of a tussle with my own director of finance in the bank. But everybody else welcomed me, from IFC, World Bank, IADB, but except for my own division head, who became a little bureaucratic because he was the former finance minister of Turkey. So he was following that bureaucratic structure. And he said that, why did you not follow the protocols in terms of wanting to reach me? But the rest of them had no problem. So we do understand as we grow, we try to learn it. Something which is very encouraging, because the kind of confidence I got from each of the meetings was something which I can't, just put it in words, but it's something which we learn over the years. So I'm happy that you've been able to build upon this, and you're able to use both your trading knowledge, reporting knowledge, which you learned there on, and now the compliance. I'm happy. A couple of you, in fact, Shiny Nair, also from a batch, I think around your batch only. Wow. She is also into compliance. She was with eBay compliance, heading for all over region. So again, it's interesting to see that finance people are getting that role, because it was earlier kept as more regulatory or a legal professional role. Then now it's more finance oriented role. And that's something which is very interesting. Now, you had seen that journey. You also spent about 2 years at the Institute. If you could highlight some of your your learnings there or your memories from there, and some things which you recall during this journey of the last 15 years in the corporate world, if there were incidences where you recall some of them, and it's maybe help, may not be help, but at least you recall some of them, and you felt happy that you had that 2 years journey as well.
Oh, great journey. And I must tell you why. There are a lot of things that I remember, and I can just go on and on. But just to give you few things that I remember. I think the best part is the presentation, everyday presentation that we used to have at 4 p.m. I remember the time as well. The 20-30 minutes, and 3 or 4 presenter. I don't know whether 3 or 4 or whatever. And everybody used to get 5-10 minutes, followed by Q&A. Now you are having that platform now. It might have, hang on.
Jinendra seems to have got disconnected, so we should have him back in a second or so.
Sorry, Aman. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay. Somehow this has. Yeah, I was saying, so at that time, this presentation thing, we didn't realize that it had so much of importance, that we are standing in front of 60 students, giving those slides that we printed, and then sharing them with the group. But then today, when we look back, it really gives us a better idea that was a moment when we could really prep ourselves. Of a lot of people and really allow ourselves to be challenged, and we prepare for those questions. So the preparatory skills that we have today, probably that before you are going on the podium or when you're going to speak, you are not only preparing what you're going to talk, but you are also anticipating what questions you might get asked and how should you respond. So I think there is an issue with the line. Are you able to hear me?
I'm able to hear you. Please go ahead.
Okay. So that is one memory that I have. Second is the FR reviews that we used to have. And I must tell you, when I first attended the session, FR, financial review, when I looked at the pages, just the pages and the formulas and the just the technical explanation of a theory, and finally the abstract and the conclusion, I was horrified. But I remember the way you had demystified, and you had taken the first session. Of course, the incentive for me was to get 2 attendance, because at that time you used to give 2 days of attendance or some extra attendance. So, but the way you demystified it, and you said, don't get bogged down by these numbers and everything, just understand the logic. And you did it for a couple of such research papers. And Aman, you can go back, look at my record. I have attended almost all the sessions, unless I would have fallen sick, because that was the day I was looking for. That okay, come Saturday, there will be somebody's work that we will dissect, understand, and in a manner which will be really fun way. And I remember there was a session when Yamini ma'am had said that you have to read this book called LTCM Long-Term Capital Fund. There was a book, and she had explained that how a Nobel laureate who created this fund and how it went on to become a huge fund, and then it failed. The contagion effect and that entire, how the Russia and how everything connected and how the assumptions were wrong. So not only those technical aspects, but some of the book knowledge that we were encouraged. that not only you have to look this, but the real life incidences like this, when who's who in life, and the Nobel laureates who created the fund can also go wrong. But who are you then? So always evolve and always question your own assumptions. Bottom line was questioning your own assumptions, your own thoughts, and probably your biases. So that was another thing. And lastly, I have to tell you, and this connects with the EMI stuff that I said. Um, Before we could just get out of the IIF, and I remember JD sir had taken a session, and he had shared his own story, saying that if you could, and this was a summary of this, if you could sustain just one more year and live life like a student that you were, even after you get a job, and save those money. So JD sir being JD sir, he started saying, okay, what will you do with your first salary? Somebody said, we'll do this, we'll do that. He said, okay, this is what I've done. So no theory, this is a practical thing. If you can sustain just one more year, assuming that you will maintain your expenses the way you are doing in your student life and preserve that money and buy some, property or something, land or something, you will probably remember that investment forever. That's exactly I did. And I started my professional life in 2005 after I graduated from IIF. And 2007, I bought my first flat in Bombay, Mumbai. So you can imagine it's a dream place to buy a property. The modest, of course, the 2-bedroom apartment and stuff like that. But anyways, so that was a seed capital that I could collect. And I cannot forget every lecture of his, what kind of color of socks you should wear, the belt combination and everything. Meaning those things might have sounded at that time like, okay, by finance kar rahe hain, why are we learning this? But those things were so important. Now, meaning, and I've seen, meaning some of the coaches that come, meaning one of the coaches that when I joined Merrill Lynch, interestingly, one of the coaches who trained us on some of the soft skill and some of those aspects was the one who trained Hillary Clinton. And when I heard some of the same thing that JD sir used to say, I was like, oh, dude, we know about it. We know about it. So imagine kind of dollars that you spent on that coach just to tell us those things. And we've learned those things in our MBA days. I think we had a wholesome experience in IIF, and meaning I can go on and on. So, but these are 4-5 things that I thought, they're very close to me, and some of them have tangibly, Aman, contributed and touched my life.
I'm very happy to, that you brought in some of these memories. These are very, very nice memories. I remember you and others performing in the class, addressing, talking, presenting. And, it's a different phase today. So, life changes, but then it is the same scenario, but it's
debating,
nice.
I must say, Yamini ma'am every time used to come, and whenever she would say, we would have some diametrically poles apart argument, and she would allow us to argue like no problem. And then finally she'll say, but by the way, have you looked at it? And then my friends and we would be like, okay, not. And then there will always be a humble ending. So, but yeah, right.
True. If you could also give some highlight on your personal growth. You've already given part of it a little bit when it comes to personal investment, but how have you grown personally? I remember you mentioning to me when I came to Mumbai, when I initially met you, that you called up your mother and you asked her to come and stay with you, and you said that now it's time that you need to stay, which I really appreciated and liked. And I told so many students thereupon that here is one person who is taking care of the family, because that's something which we always felt proud of and told, that you must take care of your family wherever you are, whatever you are. And that is something which really impressed me. That was the initial phase only. I met you immediately once you had joined, and I had been visiting Bombay for some work, and at that time I met you. So if you could give some highlight of how your personal life has been in another 2-3 minutes, how you have grown on a personal front as well, because it's not only professional growth, it's important that you need to go personally as well.
Absolutely. So mom is ever kicking, and she still kicks me and has always the last word. So whatever humor or whatever sharpness that I have is all because of her and her teachings. Uh, and honestly, she was the one who pushed me to come to IIF. So after my selection, I had to really find every penny in the house. Okay, do we have it? And she said, "Don't worry, whatever we have, you start." So at that time, we only had about 2 semesters fees with us, and I didn't know whether I'll be able to complete the third one. She said, "Okay, let's try. You go, and kuch nahi hai to वापस आ जाना." Fortunately, one fine day I was sitting in in library. Deepak sir uh, came to me, and he told me that, why don't you apply for the scholarship? And I said, but I'm not a sports person. I'm not somebody who has scored distinguished numbers in my previous academic, and I'm not a ranker and all. But he said, why don't you try on a need-based requirement? So he said, okay. I said, okay, no problem. And then JD sir said, okay, no problem. Don't worry about it. And, done. Just focus on your studies. And I called my mother, and she was virtually in tears. And she said that she would like to come and meet JD sir. And she had actually came to meet JD sir in the first year. So yeah, she is perfectly fine. And of course, all the friends that I have, I'm still in touch. Kanika, Ashish, Anjali, not so much, but occasionally, yes. But entire gang, Aditi and everybody, Preeti, Aditi, everybody, I think we are still in touch. Uh, and got married in 2012 with my with love of my life, Survi, who is working with Citibank currently. At that time, she was in Indore. She's from Indore, uh, and and she's also now in compliance. She was a fashion designer earlier, but then I probably did some voodoo on her, and I convinced her that, okay, come into compliance field, and she's now part of anti-money laundering, compliance, financial risk compliance, as they call it. She's part of that. She was in Deutsche Bank, and now she's part of Citibank. So it's a small family. My mother, my wife Survi, and I. That's it. And I financially done reasonably well. Bank has taken care of everything that I could have hoped for, and much more beyond that. So that is one advantage. If you stick to longer to a particular organization, there might be ups and downs in terms of numbers. So when I joined the bank, just to give you anecdotally the growth of the bank. So when I joined Bank of America, it was trading at $4. Today it's $46. So you can imagine that's the growth of the bank, and bank has been kind enough to share its wealth, to me. So yeah, it's been a great personal journey as well.
Jinendra, I would also like if you could give some highlights of the industry. You've seen 15 years of the banking industry from both the trading and now the compliance perspective. Yeah. Compliance, it's been about 11, 12 years now. How, if you could give maybe 2 or 3 minutes on how the industry has evolved. You did reflect it in the initial introduction remarks, but if you could give me more specific on them. Yeah. And, how do you see it growing in the next 2 to 3 years? With the digital influx which is there, you already did mention part of it again, the way you are able to look at different country zones, compliances sitting here now, which could not have been done before. But then if you could still give some inputs there on the compliance component of the banking industry per se.
Compliance of meaning as a banking industry, one thing has remained and one thing will remain, in place forever, is the core aspect of it. It is the the risk discipline with which the banks are doing the lending and ensuring the financials and the balance sheets remain strong. I mean, that part has always remained in the focus, now even more. For example, as I said, right, I touched upon very briefly in terms of the importance of compliance over a period of time. But if you see that's just a subset of it. Primarily, it is the governance part of it. Now, in terms of the products, today we have fintech, meaning it was always there. Frankly, what is fintech? I just read somewhere and somebody said fintech is nothing but NBFC plus this plus 2 IITs is a fintech. So, meaning today it's a new name, meaning, right, Aman, e-commerce always existed. Times of India had India Times website, which used to sell products. Today it's in Amazon avatar. So maybe the clothes and the names might change, but the core banking is going to remain forever. I don't think that's going anywhere. So today, fintechs or bitcoins or everything, these nuances might come, the digital revolution in terms of how the product proposition is possibly pushed to you, whether it is, but I haven't seen in India any remarkable innovation. Frankly, we are just copying things. Whether it is a short-term lending apps that you have, or you have payday lenders who say that, okay, we pay you, but we take a lot of these things are we are still in a phase where we are copying stuff. A lot of innovation our own guys are doing outside of India. Maybe because there is an appetite for that failure. Maybe there is a capital which allows you to spend on those high-paid execs, the mathematicians, the statisticians, and the innovators and entrepreneurs to spend money and ideate and think about it. We are still slightly defensive, but I think we are getting there. In terms of the our bank, who has brought a lot of these new age investors to the public in last so many years, we have seen a lot of those journeys from not so unicorn to unicorn, and now Zinicorn, the new terms. So we've seen that. But as far as pure banking is concerned, products are going to be the same. I don't think that's changing. You have innovation in terms of the trade financing. You have innovations in terms of ease of accessing the product and the loans and the credit, the capital will have its nuances, the way the capital is brought to the system and the way that capital is distributed. But at the core of it, the banking is going to remain the same. Fundamentally, what is going to change and what's going to always remain in the focus is the quality of risk-taking ability that you have, how risk averse you are, and even if you're taking risk, how strong you are governing that risk. So it's not a problem if you're taking a risk and you're probably focusing on the high risk lending areas, but then how efficiently you are governing that, how you are communicating that same risk to your stakeholders, your shareholders, and more importantly, making sure that you have enough capital to back it up. And regulator is convinced that, okay, you can withstand the liquidity crisis. So those things, I think, will continue to remain in focus. Increasingly, I see 3 or 4 things to really be in focus. One is clear focus on governance. As we call it in our metrics, we call it ESG. Now, everybody knows this word, so I don't think I need to define it, the environmental, social, and governance. But out of these 3, the governance, if you take care of that, then automatically these 2 things are going to follow. Second is your climate risk specific products, wherein how are you making sure that every dollar that you lend or every issuer that you find a capital for in the investment banking world, how clean they are, how socially responsible they are. So those kind of things will probably assume more importance. But governance part, I think, is going to grow and get more and more premium, which is why we see, and you know that, right? A lot of these banks command more premium because of the governance, even after having the same dollar revenue, with their other counterparts. So I think this aspect, although it may sound mundane, like an old one saying do the right thing, but that's going to command premium. And as we see this economy getting 5 trillion and 10 trillion and now exponential, whatever is the future, I think that's where people will pay premium. So no, it doesn't matter if your profits are down, but if you're transparent about it, and if you are governing it well, making the right disclosures, people will still buy and pay dollars to your investments. So I think that's going to be of paramount importance.
Last 2 or 3 minutes more from you. If you can give your outlay of how do you see your next 5 years? I know you've been in compliance, and there are still more challenges which are there in compliance. Compliance is a very strongly evolving area, and with the digital influx, I think the compliance and the security issues are becoming even more difficult. And the speediness, the speediness in terms of meeting with the compliance is increasing by the day with the way digital influx is going on. It's becoming very difficult for almost all organizations in a way. Not only because you have regulators locally, but you have regulators globally, and then you have in any case a public view, which is a indirect regulator, always observing you 24/7, 365 days with the social structure. Now, with that, where do you see 5 years going ahead in your life?
Extremely difficult question. Extremely difficult question, because I will continue to do what I'm doing, and only one thing that will change is probably my coverage in terms of what more I will do. So it will be a function of how efficiently I manage two things. One is my work-life balance, and second, my workload and how efficient I become. Because today, meaning when I started at the bottom, I had to pay a lot of attention, to the detail, and probably do a lot more spade work. As I grew up, and so I again had to start focusing on the key points, not the detailing part. But in my current role, I have to do mix of both. I have to adjust sometimes when I am interacting with the senior management, by making sure that the right messages are passed on, but not too much of detail. At the same time, I need to be again strong on details when I'm interacting with the regulators, because the regulator, on the other hand, on the other spectrum, they want a lot of details. They want you to be very sharp. So there's a lot of workload. Regulators are demanding, and increasingly, and rightfully so. And they will. That's not going to change. So how we are designing our compliance program over a period of time, things have evolved. How we will. So as I said, the second function is how efficiently I conduct a lot of my BAU routines and some of this stuff, so which will allow me to cover additional geographies, additional markets, and regulators. So I think that is how. So probably if I'm helping today, my manager covering some of these Southeast Asia countries, whether I can deepen my coverage. So maybe I'm doing a lot of this stuff at a macro level, but if I can just go down, dig a little deeper, and make existing coverage even more efficient, I think that will be the focus. Nothing new, but doing thing again and again in a sustainable manner, because that's the key word today. That you can shine one day in a blue moon, but can you sustain that? I think that's the key. That's what people are now looking for. People aren't looking for a 1-day glory or 2-day glory. People are saying, okay, no problem, but can you just continue to hit the right spot? So that's what I want to do, and I'm sure, and that's what I've done, and I'm sure things and the growth will follow. So that's what I'm sure of.
I'm happy to see the contented view you have. Let me put it this way. Let us say, given the career growth and graph, which I have seen at least from your LinkedIn profile briefly and the way you explain, let me say if you are given a role of a managing director of one of the subsidiary units of Bank of America, because Bank of America is a large holding company. They hold large number of other subsidiary units, like you talked about, Merrill Lynch and various others. So in case they are, or they propose to you your boss proposes to you that why don't you go and take over? Are you willing to take up that jump and move to that, which will not be pure compliance? It will be a completely different ball game altogether, because being a managing director, as you might have seen with your head, who you deal with directly, is completely different role. It's not one stream, it's multiple streams which are reporting to you, and you have to take care of them simultaneously. Are you think that you're ready to go forward, or you will take some more years to go forward for that kind of a role?
Anytime, I will, because that's what I'm made of. अभी तो ट्रेलर देखा है, पिक्चर अभी बाकी है.
Very good. I'm happy to hear that at all. Lastly, any advice to future IIFians or currently studying IIFians which you have in place to give in the next 1 or 2 minutes before we close the session today? I
thought about it actually, and my conclusion was that if you made to IIF, you don't need any advice, because you've already cracked it. So if you cracked it, if you are just doing the right thing, just continue the momentum, and that's about it. Only one piece of personal advice, and I've already, meaning people don't need advice these days. And the best way to advise somebody is to, you yourself do it, and then people will find it useful and will do it. I have been a fan of reading stuff, especially when you are in your formative years. If you are reading what's happening around you, especially in the Indian market, if you're going to remain, right? So you said that if there are other locations, just one anecdote for like 15-second segue. But I'll come back to this. There have been number of times my manager's manager, our regional head, has called me and said that we have this opportunity in Europe, we have this opportunity in Hong Kong, Singapore, and I have decided that okay, I want to, meaning I don't know what holds for tomorrow, but at least for now, I want to remain in India. India is growing, and if I'm going to be in India, I should know about the market, the history, a lot of stuff that you can read. Books on financial scams, for example. Why not? Because it will give you, and not just seeing that series once, but I'm just saying a lot of stuff around you. Just read, and that will stay for you, with you forever. And that will give you a practical insight, what has happened, which could have been done probably better. And these days, fortunately, a lot of good podcasts that are available, and like really, and they're all available for free of charge. So they're brand history related podcasts, the American Scandal podcast, so much stuff. So Enron, for example, Aman, I remember we had discussed in IIF, when I'm reading that podcast, not reading, listening the podcast while I'm driving, I really, meaning I felt that good that I'd learned about it back in the day. It was so useful. Some of the basic tenets of financial risk management. There is so much to read and listen available today. Spend your time on that, and I think leave rest of the story behind. And somebody taught me, and I will just relay that, what 2008, when things were very tough, somebody said that flow with the wind, and destiny will definitely, if leave few things on destiny, and you will find your own water finds its own way. So I had never planned this career, but here I am. Everything that I learned in some period or some lecture of at IIF or in my graduation or with my friends in discussions, some is always coming to use. So yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Jinendra, for this. And we will be calling you later on for more specific topics like compliance and all. And with your, you may need to do a permission from your bank also, because that involves some part of your work. This was this is off the talk. This has nothing to do with the bank person, so it is okay.
So interestingly, when Deepak sir said that what are the areas that I should cover, I looked at it and see whether I need a permission from my bank. Usually, in others case, they come to me for an approval, other, colleagues of mine or senior people. So here I am, who is supposed to say, I was really thinking, who do I go for an approval? And then I thought that there's nothing confidential here.
Yeah.
But anyways, I think not only compliance is, but also the conduct risk, Aman. That's one area which is getting prominently discussed, and you've seen it, like senior most officials of the exchange, the CEOs of the exchange, the banks, after achieving so much in their career, are getting fired.
True.
Right? And the reputations. So
True.
Compliance as well as the conduct risk is one of the biggest area which the world is focusing on. People are paying attention, but that's one area we should focus on.
True. Thank you, Jinendra. I do see some raised hands, but actually we are not opening the session for question answers here. And, if anyone, I do see some alumni is also present here. So I would request them to take their talks, off the channel today, because we wanted to keep it only focused. And as I said, we are going to hold the series going forward in a virtual mode, and we're going to have that bring forth what our alumni is and how the alumni have been performing and doing, and also the sector specific issues as to what's going on and what's not going on. With that, I would like to thank Jinendra to have joined us today at a very short notice. He agreed and to be on a holiday with us on 26th of January. A very happy Republic Day to you, Jinendra, and everybody who is here with us today. Although I do see Professor Agarwal here, I do see Jyoti Ranjan. I don't know. Let me see if, I should give, because I do see Professor Agarwal also. Just a second. Give me a minute. I'll have to make some of them co-hosts so that they can, if they want to, at least those I know, if they want to say a word or something, then they're welcome to do that. Just a second. So I made a few of your co-hosts. If anyone wants to say something, Jyoti, Preeti, want to say something, you're most welcome to say so that Deepak is also there. Otherwise, we'll call it for a day today. Perfect. That'll be fine. Thank you, Jinendra, and convey my regards to your mother and best wishes to your wife. Look forward to catching up sometime soon after this COVID thing is over. And I'm normally there in Mumbai once in a year, at least for 1 or 2 board meetings. So whenever I'm there next, I will trouble you for a cup of coffee or maybe dinner at your home.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you again. And have a nice day.
Thank you.